Let's put the women and children to bed and go looking for dinner. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now. I want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We're the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. Also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on YouTube. We want to get up to 500 likes on this show. And also leave a comment. I will get to it in the chat later in the show. And also a special programming note that there will be live editions of Inside College Basketball Now on Mondays and Thursdays during the 25-26 college basketball season at 1 o'clock Eastern. The Monday show will be airing on CBS Sports Network. And if you can't be live with us for either of those shows, get with us on your commute home, during your early morning workout. Make us part of your day. We need an army with us for each and every show here on Inside College Basketball Now, and we need you to be all you can be. And also a reminder that in addition to those shows on Mondays and Thursdays, Inside College Basketball Now will be bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the biggest and best names in the sport. On Friday morning, I will chat at 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube with St. Louis's Josh Schertz, the Billikens 23-1 on the season. But as always, we start our show with three big things. And we're going to start from results last night, and that's Michigan and Florida both made statements on Wednesday night, and statements in two different areas. We're going to start with the Wolverines, who came back from a double-digit deficit on the road at Northwestern in Evanston and walked away with another win. Throughout this game, and I was watching in the studio when I was in for CBS Sports Network, I never wavered for Michigan's ability to come back and win the game. Even as Northwestern built momentum, even as Northwestern built a double-digit lead, because I know the talent that exists on Dusty May's roster. And I said it earlier in the week, and I'm going to continue to say it from now until the Wolverines either win a national championship or are eliminated in the NCAA tournament. Michigan's four reserves, L.J. Kaysen, Trey McKinney, Roddy Gale, and Will Cheddar, along with either Marez Johnson or Adai Mara, two post players who start for the Wolverines. That five-man unit would be good enough to finish in the top half of the Big Ten and make the NCAA tournament. And you saw the production in the comeback win last night off the bench for the Wolverines. Kaysen was sensational. He had 18 points. Gale only had 3. And McKinney chipped in 12. This is 7 straight games where Trey McKinney has come off the bench and hit double figures. Michigan, the team right now that I have number one in the Rothstein 45, which posts every single day on Twitter between 8 and 10 Eastern. Michigan will next take on UCLA on Saturday on CBS. The Wolverines, again, have the best 9-man roster in the sport, have a dramatic win. But one thing I found out doing the deep dive and studying Michigan, because you're always looking, as we continue to inch closer and closer to Selection Sunday, you're always looking for different potential things that could be exposed over a 6-game tournament. And this is one thing that I've noticed. Michigan has a ridiculous front line with Lendeborg, with Johnson, with Adai Mara. Michigan has, as I just said, a bench unit that could rival maybe most bubble teams in terms of their projected starting five. And Michigan on the glass is straight up ridiculous because of that size I had referenced. Wolverines out-rebounded Northwestern 47-30 last night. And on Sunday against Ohio State, those three front court players I referenced, Lendeborg, Mara, and Johnson, out-rebounded the Buckeyes by themselves. Michigan in its last 2 Big Ten games is out-rebounding the opponent by 20-29. But nevertheless, the one thing that is something to be concerned about if you are a Michigan fan is the ball security at the point guard spot. And when you look now, to me, at the main issue surrounding Michigan in these close games that it has played over the last couple of weeks, last night at Northwestern and also Nebraska at home, it has been a direct correlation to the lack of ball security by Elliot Cadeau. And Elliot Cadeau is a player, when he turns the ball over in a game 5 or more times, Michigan finds itself in a steel cage death match. Elliot Cadeau in the game last night against Northwestern and also the game against Nebraska, which was a classic game in Ann Arbor, Elliot Cadeau combined for 13 turnovers. Early in the season, Michigan had a very difficult game at TCU and also a very difficult game in Detroit against Wake Forest. Elliot Cadeau's ball security was also not strong in those games. So if you're looking to find a hole to expose at Michigan, it's at the point guard spot. And it sets up a fascinating matchup on Saturday on CBS as Elliot Cadeau will go toe-to-toe with Donovan Dent of UCLA. Dent playing over the last couple of weeks like the All-American that everybody thought he would be entering the season. In his last 3 games, he's got 32 assists to just 4 turnovers. UCLA has the personnel to space out Michigan on offense with guys like Tyler Bilodeau or even Xavier Booker, guys that can face the basket and make threes. I don't know, though, how UCLA is going to get a single rebound against Michigan's front line. UCLA, for a Mick Cronin coach team, very poor the last 2 years on the defensive backboard. But Michigan, the story last night in Evanston, a tremendous comeback, 52 points in the second half. But the thing to watch on Saturday on CBS and moving forward, the ball security of Elliot Cadeau, 13 turnovers combined in the game last night against Nebraska, game last night against Northwestern, and also the Nebraska game a couple weeks ago. Now, another thing, when we talk about statements made last night, Wednesday night, was the continued avalanche from the defending national champion Florida Gators. Sometimes losses in the middle of a season is a positive. Sometimes losses in the middle of a season, especially when it's a game you think you should win, is something that can be the incubator of a great turnaround. That is what I think we are seeing from Florida after losing to Auburn at home a couple of weeks ago. Because Florida has now put together a 4-game winning streak since that loss with an average margin of victory of nearly 30 points per game. Florida has settled its rotation. In the last 2 games, Isaiah Brown has come off the bench and given the Gators 12 points apiece in each of those two games. So now all of a sudden, Todd Golden doesn't just have Urban Klobuchar off the bench as a guard that he can rely on. He also has Isaiah Brown. And the more and more time goes on, and the more and more we watch Ruben Chinyelu play, I think he is starting to separate himself, if he hasn't already, as the clear favorite to be the National Defensive Player of the Year. During this 4-game winning streak, he's grabbed 64 rebounds. Last night in the win at Georgia, where Florida dominated the game from tip to finish, Chinyelu had 20 rebounds. You saw what he did defensively in the Alabama game a couple of weeks ago, not just on the post players for the Crimson Tide, but his ability to switch on defense with magic moves that would make Fred Astaire envious with the way he could move his feet. Chinyelu, and I talked to Florida staff about this when I was in Gainesville before the season and throughout the season. Chinyelu is somebody who took the temperature during the NBA draft process last year of NBA executives, and they were blunt and honest and told him that he was not ready for the professional level. He is now double the player he was a year ago when Florida won the national championship. Florida is in sole possession today of first place in the SEC standings. To me, the Gators are clearly the conference's best hope for a team to go to the Final Four. And Florida will play a fascinating game Saturday in Gainesville against Kentucky, who has been rallied by Mark Pope. One other thing I want to point out, because we have spent so much time obviously talking about Florida's front court, and for good reason. Tommy Hauck's playing like an All-American. Alex Condon had a nice game last night. I just waxed poetically on Chinyelu. During this 4-game winning streak, Xavier Lee, the transfer from Princeton, 21 assists, 2 turnovers. That is illegal in 48 states. The second big thing I want to get to today, Purdue has a runway here to seriously improve its NCAA tournament seed. Now, if you follow me and you know the way I like to structure my weeks, on Friday, 9 a.m. on Twitter, I am releasing my bracket breakdown, my bracket projection for the NCAA tournament as of that day. As of that day. And right now, as I started to work on it earlier today, I can tell you that with Purdue's win the other night at Pinnacle Bank Arena over Nebraska in what was a terrific college game, and it feels like now we are getting terrific college game after terrific college game on a regular basis, which we are almost every night, starting with last Friday when we had that St. John's UConn game at Madison Square Garden. But because of that win, I now have Purdue as a 2 seed in my bracket projection. Purdue is a team that has a runway here to stock quad 1 wins. Purdue is a team right now that has a path, in my opinion, still to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying it's a straight line, but the facts are the facts. And this is one thing we have to remember. Teams like Purdue have a greater chance of putting together a resume for a number 1 seed than a team like a UConn, to a lesser extent Duke, but Duke is obviously benefiting from a better ACC this year. But the Big Ten is like a Pez dispenser for quad 1 opportunities, especially for a team like Purdue or a team like Illinois or a team in the Big 12 like an Iowa State or a Kansas, and we'll get to Kansas a little bit later. But this is the remaining regular season schedule for Purdue, who I have as a 2 seed as of today. At Iowa on Saturday. Next week, Michigan at home, followed by another game against Indiana at home. Indiana, as of today, was 30th in the net. That is another quad 1 opportunity. Then you get Michigan State at home. You're at Ohio State. That's another quad 1 opportunity. You finish the season at Mackey Arena against Northwestern and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, as of today, was only 37th in the net, so that will be a quad 2 game, but still obviously a great opportunity for Purdue. So right now, before the Big Ten tournament, Purdue has 5 opportunities to bolster its standing from a quad 1 situation, and 3 of those opportunities are at Mackey Arena. Purdue trails Michigan by 2 games in the loss column in the Big Ten standings. Michigan is going to travel to Purdue next week, and Michigan also still has to travel to Illinois. So there is a window right there for the Boilers, who again played a great game the other night at Pinnacle Bank Arena against Nebraska. Braden Smith was Braden Smith, touched all areas of the box score. I didn't think Fletcher Lawyer had a particularly good shooting game, but he scored. And Trey Kaufman-Wren, who continues to battle being banged up, came away with 19 rebounds against the Huskers. But going over things with a fine-tooth comb, as I like to do from time to time, it's interesting when you think about potential X factors for Purdue in the NCAA tournament. And we had Matt Painter on this show earlier this season, and I had talked to Matt Painter about this early in the season. When Purdue made its move in 23-24 to get to a national title game, to get to a Final Four, one of the big reasons why that team was able to exercise the demons from the year prior when Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson is because Matt Painter went to the transfer portal, got a mid-major piece in Lance Jones, who became the missing piece to what Purdue was lacking. I'm starting to see the same types of requisites in Oscar Clough for this particular team. When Purdue needed a bucket against Nebraska late, it was Clough who came up with the decisive basket. And now, going over things with a fine-tooth comb, like a CPA on April 14th, this is something I came up with. In games this season that Oscar Clough scores in double figures, Purdue is 12-1. The only loss is that loss in December to Iowa State at Mackey Arena. So, much like Billy Crystal said in one of my favorite movies, The Princess Bride, when we worried last Saturday that Purdue was limping against Oregon, an undermanned Oregon team at Mackey Arena, it turns out Purdue was only mostly dead, not all dead. And now Purdue has air in its tires with a huge win at Pinnacle Bank Arena. And Purdue is going to march on to this slate. And I'm going to say it one more time for the next 5 games. At Iowa, quad 1 win, quad 1 opportunity. Michigan, Indiana, and Michigan State, all at Mackey Arena, all quad 1 opportunities. And at Ohio State. Ohio State is a team, in my opinion, that has major work to do when it comes to the NCAA tournament bubble. Because what's happening now, when you are somebody, and this is one thing I learned years ago, it is one thing to just look at teams and say, oh, well, they have to be in, and not obviously keep a running log. When you keep a running log, and I recommend anybody who covers college basketball, anybody who follows college basketball and eats this stuff for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight snacks like I do, I recommend doing this. Go to your computer, open a document, and type in every major conference and understand that you are going to have an automatic qualifier from those conferences. And then go in and try to punch in the other at-large teams. When you do that and you see that, all of a sudden you see how difficult it is to make the NCAA tournament. And I'm looking at Ohio State's resume, and I'm seeing a team that plays in the Big Ten, but there is just not a lot of meat on the bone. There's a neutral site win over West Virginia. There's a home win over UCLA. UCLA is slightly in the bracket right now, I think projected to be a 10 seed. UCLA's got big opportunities, though. Michigan, Michigan State, and Illinois in the next three. But Ohio State has major work to do, in my opinion, and a big opportunity in a neutral site game Saturday against Virginia. One thing, too, and I talked about this the other night a little bit when I was in studio, but we have so many compelling games every night in college basketball. And I'm not just talking about the big headliners. I'm not just talking about UConn St. John's or Michigan State, Illinois, or Purdue, Nebraska. I'm saying every single night the games mean something. It means something, okay, when Oklahoma State has to play Arizona State to keep its NCAA tournament hopes alive. It means something when Utah State goes to New Mexico and it's a quad one opportunity for the Lobos to keep their at-large hopes alive. It means something when Santa Clara on Saturday is going to play its biggest game ever under Herb Sendek and have a chance to get a quad one win and build an at-large resume. All these games mean something and are great for college basketball. But if the NCAA tournament expands and the NCAA tournament goes to 76 teams, these games will mean nothing because everybody is going to get in. Everybody of somewhat note is going to get in. Compelling theater is what makes sports. Compelling theater is what gets people from the periphery to tune in. Last night, Dennis Gates in Missouri go on the road, beat Texas A&M in College Station. That is a major, major add-on for a team that has already won at Kentucky, beaten Florida at home. That's compelling theater. That is going to be gone and finished in February if the NCAA tournament expands. Now, I know nothing is forever. I know this feels like an inevitability, but I'm just telling you right now, as somebody whose livelihood depends on college basketball, as somebody who loves this sport after my wife and child as much as anything in my life, we are going to lose this theater from now until Selection Sunday. Everything you're going to see during championship week, every game mattering, that's going to go away. That's going to go away. And look, we understand what the argument is, right? We understand. It's all being run by the four Power Four commissioners. And the argument they make when you ask them the question is they say, well, we want more access for our teams. You want more access? I'm telling you this right now, and it's a fact of life. Fact of life. The Big Ten and the SEC are projected to have double-digit teams in the NCAA tournament. The ACC, in my bracket projection on Friday, will have 9 teams in the NCAA tournament out of its 18. And the Big 12, while it doesn't have quite as many as those teams, it has 7 or 8. The Big 12 has 6 of the top 16 protected seeds. 5 of the top 16 protected seeds because BYU is no longer in there. Talk about access. Everybody has the same access to the NCAA tournament at the power conference level. It's called your conference tournament. You win it, you move on. And I'll give you the perfect example before I transition. Look at NC State and Kevin Keatts in 2024. That team was nowhere near the NCAA tournament. Nowhere near it. Started on Tuesday at the ACC tournament. Tuesday was losing at the half to Kenny Payne in Louisville, I believe. was losing in that game, went on a run for the ages at the ACC tournament. The ages. Incredible. I'll never forget where I was when NC State hit that shot to tie the game against Virginia. Never forget it. And then NC State goes to the Final Four for the first time since Jimmy V in '83. That is what makes college basketball so special. And that is what could be taken away if we oversaturate the NCAA tournament. That's how I feel about that. The third big thing I want to get to. Bill Self is doing one of the best coaching jobs of his Hall of Fame career. Now, that is a line that a lot of people may say is easy to use for a Hall of Fame head coach, but it's the utmost truth. I did not see this coming with Kansas. And if you've listened to the show, if you follow me, you know I didn't see it coming with Kansas. Not at all. I looked at Kansas as a team that was coming off losses of 10 or more in back-to-back seasons. I was looking at a Kansas team that had not been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since it won a national championship in 2022. I was looking at a Kansas team, in my opinion, that was getting left behind by the new wave of the Big 12 with Houston, Arizona, etc. I didn't think the supporting cast for Kansas was ready to display what it has displayed the last couple of weeks. I did the first four a couple of years ago. Melvin Council was at Wagner before going to St. Bonaventure, then Kansas. Bryson Tiller did not have tangible college production entering this season. Trey White, who has been an unsung piece and a revelation as a utility player for Kansas, played for 3 schools in the past 3 years. He's now played in 4 schools in 4 years. And look, that's the climate. Good for him. But still, when you don't have any continuity, and this is something that I think we need to look at that's amazing, the only active player in Kansas's program right now that was a part of things last year is Flory Badunga. This is not a run that's based on continuity. It is a run based on great coaching and making the pieces fit when Kansas has had not one, but 2 teams this season, with Darren Peterson and without Darren Peterson. Now, here's the thing. It is a maddening exercise to continue to think about what's going to happen with Darren Peterson moving forward because we don't know and we have no idea. He had the flu the other night against Arizona, said he couldn't go, whatever. I'm just telling you this. The ceiling for Kansas is at its highest when Darren Peterson is on the floor because long-term, he has the highest ceiling out of any player in college basketball. And he can do things that nobody else can do in college basketball. And if you don't believe me, look at the shots that he hit a little over a week ago in the road win at Texas Tech. It looked like Kobe Bryant on the first 3 that tied the game. And the second 3 obviously had a high degree of difficulty, but not like the first. But with that said, because Bill Self is doing one of the best coaching jobs of his career, and because Bill Self has molded this team to mirror its head coach, we now have Kansas without its star owning wins over Tennessee and on Monday night over Arizona. Kansas is the only team this season to beat Arizona, and it came without the player that has the highest ceiling in the sport. Remember, it's not anarchy. It's just college basketball. Kansas has won 8 in a row. It will play at Iowa State on Saturday. And I was trying to think, because Kansas has always had so many great teams under Bill Self. They've won 2 national championships. They've had a streak of all those Big 12 regular season titles a row. This, to me, reminds me, from a coaching perspective and wringing out the sponge, of the 2012 season for Bill Self. Now, you have to go deep into the archives for this, but that's what I do. It's what I live for. That's why I love content. I love going deep in the archives. Kansas, after 2011, lost Marcus and Markieff Morris. That Kansas team was built to win the national championship, was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, lost to VCU and Shaka Smart in the Elite 8 in San Antonio. Lost the Morris twins. It was Tyshawn Taylor, Travis Relaford, Brady Morningstar, Thomas Robinson, Jeff Withey. but Bill Self got that team to the national championship game where it lost to Anthony Davis in Kentucky. This, to me, is a standout coaching job in the same type of feel as what Bill Self did in 2011, 2012. And if this keeps going, and if this guy keeps Kansas peaking, and they'll have another opportunity Saturday at Iowa State, you got to start talking about Bill Self in the mix to be the national coach of the year. Want to touch on something else down the road in the Big 12, and that's what's going on at Kansas State. And Kansas State on CBS Sports Network on Wednesday night had about as embarrassing a performance as you could have, losing to Cincinnati, another team that's nowhere near the NCAA tournament picture. Lost by 29 points, 91-62. Jerome Tang gave a passionate press conference after talking about, obviously, how embarrassed he was, how disappointed he was. This happened a couple of weeks ago at home against Iowa State. Iowa State's obviously a much better team than Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati beat them. But I'll just say this. I love Jerome Tang. I've known him since he was an assistant coach at Baylor. I think he is obviously a great man. I think he is a great, obviously, ambassador for college basketball. But when you do not get your team to show any resistance, it's something that is falling on the head coach. And this is what I will say, and I'm sure he would agree with it. Jerome Tang took Kansas State on a fairy tale run to the Elite Eight in 2023. He then had a team I felt would have been in the NCAA tournament in his second year if Naquan Tomlin was not lost at the start of the season. Naquan Tomlin was an all Big 12 player. So I think Kansas State would have had 2 NCAA tournament appearances in Jerome Tang's first 2 years if Naquan Tomlin was a part of that second team. Then Kansas State flipped its roster, brought in Coleman Hawkins out of the transfer portal. That didn't work out. Then Kansas State flipped its roster again and brought in a transfer class headlined by PJ Haggerty. That's not working out. I think Kansas State right now is a microcosm of what's going on right now in the transfer portal climate when you do not have high levels of retention and you don't have players back. Now, look, Kansas State is not going to be able to play its way back to the NCAA tournament picture this season unless there is some sort of miracle run in the Big 12 tournament, which I obviously don't see happening. But Kansas State is straddling a fence. And over the next 30 or so days till it plays its last game in Kansas City, Kansas State needs to show more resistance, more pride, and also more accountability moving forward. Because this was a program when I started doing this that had great tradition, great respect, great history. Going from Lon Kruger to Bob Huggins to Frank Martin to Bruce Weber, who took Kansas State, obviously, to multiple Big 12 regular season titles and also a trip to the Elite Eight. This was not Kansas State basketball, what I saw the other night against Cincinnati and what I saw a couple of weeks ago against Iowa State. Look, Jerome Tang's been there 4 years. The first year, he was the national coach of the year. The second year came up just short of the NCAA tournament. They get in with Tomlin. The last two, it's a great reminder. And I've said this not just about Kansas State, but also about a lot of programs. When you see, and we're all guilty of this, when you see in April and May, certain teams post certain commitments, certain coaches, it could be assistant coaches, whoever, certain people post GIFs about how great a get is or we're back or whatever. And this is not about Kansas State. This is about everybody in the business. Let's take a little bit of caution when we anoint something before we see it happen. This is a perfect analogy right now. We don't get excited about a 5-star meal when somebody's in the kitchen making the sauce. You get excited about it when you start smelling the finished product and thinking about sampling that sauce. So let's get a little bit more caution around what we see in April and May when people are adding players out of the transfer portal. And a perfect example, you can go back to Kansas. Kansas added Hunter Dickinson a couple of years ago from Michigan. Best player in the portal. Was a guy who was an All-American who went in the transfer portal. Kansas then had its worst 2 seasons back-to-back under Bill Self. Want to hear from you, want to get your thoughts in the chat. I have said my piece, but Inside College Basketball Now is about you. I am a man of the people, and I want to hear from the people when I return. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now. I want to remind you, subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. Also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on YouTube. We want to get up to 500 likes on this show. We need an army with us for Inside College Basketball Now, and we need you to be all you can be. And a reminder, programming-wise, live shows for Inside College Basketball Now on Mondays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. Mondays will be on CBS Sports Network, and plus those shows, we will be bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the biggest and best names in the sport. Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, I chat with St. Louis head coach Josh Schertz. Okay, the chat is bleeding right now. Let's go and get some questions here. We can scroll up a little bit. I want to see who wants to talk. Okay. Scrolls like me on the treadmill. It doesn't go very fast. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Missing something. Okay, here we go. Mooney Goat says, who is the best team in the country and why is it the Gators? The best team in the country to me, I would still take Michigan's roster on a neutral court. I'm a little concerned still about Elliot Cadeau's ball handling in these big-time situations, but I would still take Michigan. Michigan UCLA is next Saturday on CBS. I will be in studio for that as well. Looking forward to it. Let's keep scrolling here if we can. Okay. Scroll. Let's see what other questions we got. Okay. EKJ313 says Purdue will lose its next game at Iowa. I don't personally see that. Iowa's coming off a loss against Maryland. I think you can make this case, and I said this in the studio this week. Iowa and Bennett Sturtz is like Tom Hanks in Castaway. He is as valuable to his team as any player in college basketball, but he's on an island by himself. Iowa, to me, is a team, and I know it has a great player. It has an All-American player, but Iowa, to me, is a team, if it gets the wrong matchup, it could get picked off in the round of 64. That's just my take. Dan from Queens 659 says, John, some people are not cut out to be head coaches. Tang is one. Look, I understand the Kansas State fan is frustrated today. I understand the college basketball fan is obviously pointing things at Jerome Tang. Jerome Tang is as frustrated as anybody with this. But what I'm going to say is this. He's the same coach who 3 years ago took Kansas State to within inches of a Final Four. He's also the same coach 2 years ago that took Kansas to within inches of the NCAA tournament without Naquan Tomlin. But again, the continuity and the lack thereof at Kansas State, in my opinion, has been a major reason why the last 2 seasons have went like they are. Let's see. This is T Camel 18. What's up, Rothstein? Please comment on Matt Painter benching Clough at the end of regulation versus Nebraska. Almost cost them the game. Look, I mean, that's a Matt Painter question. I wasn't coaching the game, but I will say this. I think Oscar Clough is a big-time difference maker for Purdue, and the numbers bear it out. 12-1 when he hits double figures. Last question. Rick Bakarski says, KU played great against Arizona. Koa Pete maybe playing through an injury. His explosiveness is lacking right now. Well, Koa Pete and Arizona are going to get a crack at Texas Tech Saturday night in Tucson. Just another day in a loaded Big 12. It's amazing to me, too, that with all the hype entering the season, and it was warranted. And look, AJ DeBansa is a first-team All-American and somebody, again, that is putting up video game-like numbers. But we have yet to see the best of BYU this season. We have yet to see BYU put its flag in the ground against a major, major team at the top of the Big 12, and that's not easy. But right now, if we're looking and evaluating the Big 12, it's pretty clear that when we look at the top 6, the Cougars are 6 of 6. Want to get to now my rankings for the week. Every Thursday, I do a rankings where I rank a certain topic, and I want to get to it. This is 5 mid-majors to watch, not named Gonzaga. In the 1 spot, it's going to be St. Louis, coached by Josh Hurts, who you can hear Friday morning on Inside College Basketball Now. The Billikens are 23-1, will play at Loyola Chicago at Friday night, trying to go to 24-1. But here's something that nobody's talking about St. Louis. St. Louis is a fluke finish away against Stanford from being 24-0 and on a path to have an undefeated regular season, just like Wichita State did in 13-14. Number 2 is Utah State. Jared Calhoun has separated himself in the Mountain West Conference. Mountain West Player of the Year favorite in MJ Collins. Mason Falls loves a guard that has NCAA tournament ability. Utah State, to me, on track to be a 7, 8, or 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. I've got Santa Clara in the 3 spot here because Santa Clara has a head-to-head win against St. Mary's. Santa Clara, a program that Herb Sendek has done a terrific job at, has done everything under Herb Sendek except make the NCAA tournament. Put Jalen Williams into the NBA. Put Brandon Pajemski into the NBA. 20-win seasons stacked on top of each other. But Santa Clara has never been to March Madness under Herb Sendek, and a major, major opportunity looms Saturday night in Northern California when Santa Clara will host Gonzaga. And it is unequivocally the biggest game of the Herb Sendek era. If the Broncos want to play in the NCAA tournament, gotta beat Gonzaga. This would give Santa Clara a win over St. Mary's, over Gonzaga, and Santa Clara is going to need those wins because it has a lingering loss against Loyola Chicago on the resume. Number 4 is St. Mary's. St. Mary's is 22-4 right now with 5 regular season games to play. Here is a big thing to watch. St. Mary's has a win over Virginia Tech. Obviously, they're a metrics darling, as always, under Randy Bennett. But St. Mary's closes the season in Moraga with home games against Santa Clara and Gonzaga. That is a major, major chip. That is a major, major chip that Randy Bennett is playing with. And number 5, how can you not obviously look at Miami, Ohio, 24-0. Miami of Ohio is 7 wins away from having a perfect regular season. But 1 loss, just 1, will spark the conversation of whether or not this team is going to really be under consideration for an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. And I know that nobody would play them. We had Travis Steele on this podcast. We've established that. It's going to be really hard, in my opinion, to make a case for Miami as an at-large team if Miami does not run the table and go all the way at least to the MAC tournament semis or finals. That's my opinion. We'll see what transpires here between now and Selection Sunday. But you know as well as I do, this is only February. All right, 3 good nuggets before we get you out of here. Let's get you some news and notes from around college basketball. Ascending Acuff, I'm talking about Darius Acuff at Arkansas. In his last 5 games, 25.2 points per game, 6.4 assists per game. He is, to me, clearly the SEC Player of the Year. Nugget number 2, bulletproof Badgers. Wisconsin now has road wins at Michigan and at Illinois. Those 2 wins make Wisconsin's NCAA tournament resume feel bulletproof to me. Badgers should be in the dance for sure. Nugget number 3, the Mercurial Horned Frogs. This is TCU's resume. Win over Iowa State, win over Florida, win over Wisconsin. Home losses to Notre Dame, one of the worst teams in the ACC, New Orleans, and also a road loss at Utah. TCU going to be an interesting team to evaluate for the bubble if they keep winning under Jamie Dixon. Let's get to some games to watch Friday night, Wisconsin hosts Michigan State. All these games now, these next 4 are on Saturday. Clemson is at Duke. Kansas is at Iowa State. Kentucky travels to Florida, big one in the SEC. Texas Tech is at Arizona. 5 under-the-radar games. UCLA at Michigan, that's Saturday on CBS. Miami at NC State. Purdue at Iowa. Gonzaga at Santa Clara. We talked at those. And then Sunday on CBS, Indiana travels to Champaign to take on Illinois. Keep a close eye on Lamar Wilkerson in that game, averaging just about 28 points per game in his last 5 or 6, playing as well as any guard in the country. Want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. And also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on YouTube. We need an army with us each and every show here on Inside College Basketball Now. And we need you to be all you can be. Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, YouTube. I catch up with St. Louis's Josh Schertz. They are 23-1. And then Monday, we will be back. Same bat time, same bat channel, 1 o'clock Eastern on CBS Sports Network. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this was Inside College Basketball Now.